always get it. The OGs always told me what I start, I gotta finish. So I push it to the limit, so I can be the greatest. So I can look my family in their eyes and say we made it. Don't let life hand you nothing, you just gotta go take it. Always keep it 100, don't ever let me catch you faking. Keep a close eye on your circle.
Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Post Prison Podcast. I'm your guy, businessman, and entrepreneur, Darryl Riley. Joining me, as always, is my top shelf sister, Miss Cynthia Brady. And today, we have some special guests, actually some of my silent heroes. We have Mrs. Karen Dolly Wall and Mr. Omari Amili, or should we call you Professor Omari Amili? But excited to have you all here, and excited to talk about this black versus white issue, this cocaine versus opiate issue. I'd like to start off by giving the folks a little bit of insight, just a small snippet of what you guys are about. I think we've been knowing the two of you for quite some time, initially through civil survival when it first got started, when all of us were kind of raw in the work, in the direction that we were going. And it's a beautiful thing after at least 5 years to see where we are today as individuals and collective, and the impact that we're having, So that's really a beautiful thing. But we're going to start with Karen. Karen is an admissions counselor at Evergreen State College, and a very passionate woman about men and women transitioning back into the community from prison. She's also an ambassador for Beautiful Heart Ministries in New York, and they invest into women coming out of prison as well. And Karen also has her own podcast called What We Need. And that podcast is
Darryl,
based on
who we need.
I'm sorry. Who we need. And it's based around amazing people doing amazing things in our community. And I'll just say for the record, no, Karen has not been to prison, but Karen has a passion for this work. Based upon the experiences of her family members going to prison. And if she didn't tell you she hadn't been to prison, you probably wouldn't know it by the way she talked. So I just thought that I'd throw that in there because I do consider you a subject matter expert in a lot of this, particularly as it pertains to reentry.
I appreciate
Mr. Professor Omari Amili, we gonna short him. He is down, but don't sleep on this brother. He's a director of teaching and advancement with Choose 180. He's also a adjunct faculty member at the University of Washington in Tacoma, School of Social Work and Criminal Justice. And he's the author of an amazing book called Transforming Society's Failures, which if you have an opportunity to pick that book up, it's a really impactful book. To be honest, I knew you for a while and knew the book was out and hadn't read it until about 9 months ago. I started to get into it, and it really helped me have more. I'll take that back. When I started to get into it is when you came out here. You had that situation with your car.
Yeah.
And it kind of just led me back into a relationship. And I was like, man, let me look into this brother again. And, to learn how you was getting down and how you got to that space, man, was really inspiring. I just want to allow you guys the opportunity to say hello to the people and any opening statements you might want to offer before we get to the meat of it. So how about we start with you, Karen?
Opening statements. First of all, Darryl and Cynthia, what an honor it is to even be invited to be on this platform with you guys. I've told you many times that this platform means a lot to me. So when you asked, I was very, very excited. And then I found out I was a guest with Omari, so I was even more excited, So definitely a privilege, definitely an honor. I love the work you're doing, Darryl. You're very raw, Cynthia. You have that faith base, my heart. I appreciate you guys. I thank you. And I'm excited. I'm just excited to be here. So thank you.
Yeah, it's very similar. You know, I'm really honored to be invited to your platform. I saw you guys got started, knew you had something amazing going. It's like, when am I gonna get that invite? I know if they're doing a podcast, I gotta be a guest eventually, you know. But I mean, you guys are two individuals who I've had to call on, you know, in the past for different things, and you guys have always shown up for me. So I'm a reciprocate every time. I'm always gonna be there if y'all call on me. From the car situation Darryl just mentioned, I was on my way to Clallam Bay for a speaking engagement, you know, and I think my tire blew out or something on the freeway, and Darryl pulled up on me on the freeway. I didn't have no money on me or nothing, gave me some money for a tow truck and some more stuff. And, you know, our relationship, I would say, has evolved, you know, a lot over the years since Civil Survival. You know, at first it was like, okay, we're coming together as board members and trying to build this organization. But, you know, I say it's evolved into something that's been so much more powerful and more organic than that, you know, where we're just coming together once a month at a table that really wasn't ours, you know. We weren't really running the ship there or anything like that. So, but I still got love for my whole Civil Survival family. I'm glad that we were able to come together through Civil Survival. And once again, just grateful to be here with y'all sharing space.
Say that. Say that.
Well, Cynthia, you know, we haven't heard from you. Is everything going out all right with you up for this whole 2022? You ready to go into the new year?
Yes, I am. 2022 was hard for me. I mean, I had lost a lot of loved ones and people that was close to me. But it was also learning experience, like that, how short life is, and that we have to start loving on each other, respecting each other, and lifting each other up and encourage each other on this journey, because the journey is not easy for anybody. And so, I mean, what I've learned is that people are here today and could be gone tomorrow. So treat people right while they're here today.
Definitely. I sure don't want nobody to have to come to my funeral and lie. I want you to come and tell the truth.
No test of lying. No test of lying. We did no test of lying at my funeral.
Yeah, right. But you know, let's get into this. You know, when we initially got started, we talked about the criminal justice system and the makeup of it and how it got started. You know, and we all know that the criminal justice system is particularly designed to lock up Black folks. That's how it began. That's what it's about. Somehow white America just got caught up in the warehousing because it became just as profitable. But for us, as people of color, particularly Black people, and myself included, how we got introduced to the prison system, at least a generation and a half of us, is through the crack trade. And them dropping crack on the streets. And without particularly going into the crack crack issue itself, I think we'll start here. They started when crack became heavy in the community, and they started the new sentencing guidelines. In those sentencing guidelines, what they actually did was separated the charges, as it opposed to powder cocaine and rock cocaine, right? Those became two separate charges. And then there was a thing involved in that sentencing order called the 100 to 1 rule. You can look that up. And why is that? Why is it that you can go to jail for more time for crack as opposed to powdered cocaine? That's because rich white people and people with money was using powdered cocaine. And that kind of slid past us. You know, we didn't even realize it. You in jail with somebody who had 10 ounces of powder cocaine. You might have 1 ounce of crack cocaine, which is the same thing, but it's the sentence is 100 times harsher. That's racism built in our system, built in our structured sentencing laws. Does anybody have a differing view on how that took place? Is anybody indifferent? Have a different opinion about that?
No, it's always knowledge, you know, Darryl, that I remember from, you know, I was only maybe 7 years old when stuff really started hitting the fan with the 90s, when with the back end of that drug epidemic, and realizing that, you know, family members, people are going, getting locked up, going to prison, and I'm trying to make sense out of, you know, out of stuff. And I remember it being called smack, dope, you know,
Mm.
all, you know, those things too. And I heard, you know, you hear of crackheads and stuff, and you still hear that term now. And so still learning, but like knowing the knowledge I know now, and like looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, this makes sense why it was like this, you know. But when I was little, I was just wondering why people are going away to do stuff and then coming back on, you know, coming back on drugs and like figuring all that stuff out. So hearing your perspective too is always knowledge to me, you know.
Well, just to be clear, I want to say what this 100-to-1 rule is. That was part of the 1986 anti-drug abuse law when there became a war on drugs. It's imposing the same penalties for possession of an amount of crack cocaine as for 100 times the amount of powder cocaine. That was by design. So if you catch me with 1 rock of powder cocaine and I was an addict, I'm smoking that powder cocaine or whatever, you can catch another guy with 100 times as much powder cocaine and I would get more time. I would actually get more time in prison. So if we look deeply into that, we'll understand how we got to the position to what we're getting ready to talk about next. And that's crack cocaine, or crack and cocaine versus opioids. It became Nancy Reagan. I remember it vividly. Nancy Reagan, the war on drugs, say no to drugs. I remember that phrase like it was yesterday, with her little frail self, champion, lock all these Black criminals up, when United States was part of the reason the crack was there in the first place. So in saying all that, particularly here in Washington, there's when several years ago, when the fentanyl and the opiate pills and all of that was real heavy in this community, from state to state, Washington started calling the opioid epidemic an epidemic, the opioid use epidemic. Why do you think opiates was an epidemic and crack cocaine was not? Because we still got generations of people in prison for crack cocaine right now.
Yeah, it goes back to what you were talking about. You asked if there were any differing opinions. That's why I didn't say anything, because I agree with, you know, everything that you had to say. There was no differing opinion there. But I mean, the reason one will get framed as an epidemic versus another is because the other one was a plan. It was a design. We weren't the chemists who created crack. They're the chemists who created crack and introduced it to the hood. And they knew exactly what was going to happen, with one side being strung out, destroying the family, another side being constantly locked up, fighting gang wars, territory wars, and things like that. This was a master plan that was mapped out and designed. So
Absolutely.
you're not going to play. I mean, I know they call it, some people might say the same thing about like COVID or so. Oh, they created it and they planned it and they still call it a pandemic. But I mean, to me, it's pretty clear what the difference is. And one was by design and the other one wasn't.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I remember doing a paper in school, and my instructor was looking at me real crazy because we had to do the presentation on what I wrote about. And I wrote about COINTELPRO and how how the feds threw the dope into the Black communities, like in Los Angeles, and the guns and all this other stuff. And what happens when you throw drugs into an oppressed environment that's already oppressed? People don't want to feel anything. They don't want to experience anything. And hey, this is a little way that I could make a little money. And it ended up with Blacks turning on Blacks eventually, when it came to who's going to make money and who's not going to make money. And they knew what they was doing from the get-go. Yeah. They knew it.
When I first started like doing my own research and learning that, like, how it came through the military first, right? The military realized staying up all night and then it got into the communities, and it just boggles my mind that this is not nothing new. This generation, there's still environmental things that impact the systems, impact us, and it's still happening today, but differently. right? And so the epidemic just it just looks different. And so from then there are some documentaries out there on there were on Netflix too, like 13th, right? And showing how the drug epidemic was such a pivotal point for our Black men and our people of color going to prison. And so, and hearing Omari's story and your story like that means a lot.
Well, I have a take on it, I don't. It's not backed by facts, as opposed. And what I mean by facts is I don't have any documented evidence of this, but I do know language matters. Language matters in communities, right? And I don't know too many Black people who were smoking pills, unless they was hanging around a lot of their white friends. So it was mostly white people, majority smoking pills. And not only that, it was some of them senators, some of them Congress people, their nieces, their nephews, their kids started messing with them opiates. And it's easier to treat and get government funding if you call it an epidemic.
Yeah.
And you don't have to criminalize it. That way, Senator so-and-so's grandson, who done been to prison 6 times for opioids, he can still get help and still get cared for, because it's not a war on drugs. It's not a war on his sickness. Because for me, you talked about people not wanting to feel, Cynthia. For me, I wanted to feel different. That's why I got high. That's why I continue to get high. I like you said, I just didn't want to feel that. I wanted to feel different.
Absolutely. It could be somebody not wanting to feel the pain or whatever they're going through, or they're uncomfortable with who they are, period. There could be several different dynamics to that. I work in that field where recovering addicts. I work in that field. And so I know that a lot of shame and guilt and all these different things that transpire with my clients in different situations like that. But in the same breath, that's the reason why I do what I do, because I want to empower them and bring them out of that mindset that like they're the only ones who have lived this life or have been through these situations and circumstances and made bad choices, and that they have to live with it, and they living with all this guilt and shame involved in it. And I told them, you can be vulnerable, and also you can use your story as your glory. That's what people are doing today. They're starting to tell their story so that people can have another outlook to what it is that it really transpired in their world. Everybody don't necessarily have the same experiences when it comes to narcotics. And Karen, when I was growing up, smack was heroin.
Yeah, and so there's different, like you guys were saying, like the language, and me not being little, hearing all these different names for what people are using, not knowing until I get older. Right? Like, oh, this is, and then realizing that, oh my gosh, like thinking you're going to prison for one thing, but it's really this thing, so.
Well, I kind of attributed that to this, the same thing with the cocaine versus crack. There's racism involved in the prosecution of it, which ties into how the stuff got there in the first place. They're actually having lawsuits against pharmaceutical companies and doctors and pharmacists for allowing the opiates to get in the community. Well, why aren't they doing anything about the Black community? People are strung out for generations. This stuff is still affecting us. So we just here to shine a light on the system, and to help folks not marginalize the individual. Cynthia, you spoke very, very clearly in terms of what it takes to rid folks of the shame and guilt. And our families are partly responsible for that happening after we return from prison. Before we go into this next portion, though, I want to turn to Omari a little bit. I want to for everybody who hasn't read your book, you talked about your parents and their situation, and you talked about, my brothers and I went to about 6 or 7 different schools. But in your book, you say you went to 15 schools.
Ooh.
As a black man, that's a professional, that's accomplished, that's highly esteemed. I mean, I think highly. I'm actually honored that you're here, even though you're younger than me. You know, I kind of look up to you. You know, we've done some work together, and I'm not embarrassed by that. But if you can, just share a little bit about your life and how you got to where you at.
Yeah, I'd say, you know, my childhood was really dominated by, you know, that crack cocaine era. You know, my mom, my dad, my stepdad, my uncles, my aunties, the friends who would come around, pretty much every adult outside of that school system that I would interact with had a crack cocaine addiction. And that's what, you know, controlled my environments that I was in. That's what controlled, you know, my access to resources, my access to stability in life, my access to, you know, just a normal childhood. You know, that stuff was taken away from me because of the crack cocaine addiction, the chronic instability that comes along with that, the, you know, gang activity at the house with the drug sales and the drug use and the drive-by shootings and the drug bust, police kicking in the door, you know, seeing how my parents had to support their habit, you know, whether it's going and stealing from stores and selling cartons of cigarettes that they stole from the big grocery store to a small corner store, you know, like I'm being exposed to so much at a young age that's shaping who I am. And, you know, I'm constantly bouncing around, you know, like from homeless shelter to homeless shelter, from transitional housing to transitional housing. Very rarely would I stay in a place long enough to go to the same school back-to-back years, or even start a school year and then finish at the same school. So my life was really out of control, you know, at a young age. We didn't have any type of, okay, let's just sit in one place and build something here, you know, and that created a lot of chaos, and it created a lot of distorted values, you know, where I was willing to do things and had to do things out of necessity at a young age that I shouldn't have to do. I shouldn't have to get my own clothes. I shouldn't have to, if I want a video game, I got to go out and hustle to go get it. I should be able to just do some chores or something and the parents go get that. But my life wasn't like that. And it was all because of crack cocaine. On my dad's part, it was alcoholism too. You know, I would say the alcoholism became a bigger deal than crack cocaine for my dad. You know, because he was a transient living in homelessness, didn't have a whole lot of money, and it didn't seem like the getting high off of crack was his priority. But every morning he wake up, he's gonna have an old English 800 in his hand. And I remember it started, we'd be riding the bus, he used to always have some vodka and lemonade with him, you know. So my dad, when I look at him, I see the alcohol. With my mom, when I look at her and my stepdad, that's where I saw like the crack cocaine, because my mom, she didn't have the same alcohol problem. And things just look different for them. You know, my dad, it was more like getting into it with people, you know, you're homeless and stuff, so, but you're drunk all the time. So you're acting an ass, you know, pretty much at all times, getting us, we might've had a place to sleep for the night and you just got us kicked out. So now we're out in the rain and the cold trying to figure out where we're gonna go. I remember one time even coming to my own grandma's porch step, you know, and she sprayed us with bug spray, like, get up out of here, you know?
Oh man.
So it was real rough, man. And addiction was at the core of all of my trauma as a child. You know, all of the adverse childhood experiences that I faced, the addiction of my parents, whether it be crack cocaine or alcoholism, was at the core of that.
So I have never heard any resentments. I don't hear resentments when I hear you speak. I hear you speaking your truth. And I know that has to be a difficult situation, not to even speak from a space where those resentments don't bubble up. What was the paradigm shift that got you to that space where I know it hurts internally, but you've kind of flipped it and use it as fuel and power? What triggered it? What was the paradigm shift?
I'm gonna be honest, it was pretty much, that resentment was never really there. I always loved my parents, you know, even when my dad was absent at times, because he ain't got no phone I could call him on, might not even know where we live at the time. So who knows the big gaps that's gonna be between me seeing my father. And then there will be times where we do go with him and we know, look, you ain't got nowhere to go, you ain't got no money, it's about to be an ugly situation, but I would still want to go sometimes, other times I might not. But I would say I never developed a resentment or ill will towards my parents. My childhood was for me, it's not like I had some other life that I lived to compare it to, where it's like, okay, I was once well taken care of and didn't have to deal with this stuff.
Absolutely.
And now I'm thrown into the fire, and it's just feel like, nah, this was my normal, you know?
Yeah, always
And
at the bottom, huh?
yeah, and it wasn't just me, it was everybody I was surrounded with. Like I said, my cousins, my friends, who, like, if my parents had a friend who came over to the house, they had an addiction problem. They were probably dealing with a lot of the same things that I was dealing with. So I was never exposed to anything else to make a comparison with, to where resentment would even pop up, you know?
But don't you believe that most of this is what attributes to your resiliency?
Definitely. I became resilient at a really young age. I had to, you know, I was forced to. And like, it was a gift and a curse, you know, because I was able to, at an age where no young kid should have to, I was able to provide for myself. You know, I was able to escape these negative environments and, you know, go to Sonics games and just be in downtown Seattle hustling all day, and, you know, come home at nighttime and then leave again in the morning, you know? So like, I didn't hate my life as a child growing up because I was a hustler, because I was a go-getter, because I wasn't someone just sitting here like, woe is me. I was someone who was about to make it happen no matter what. Like, I like Sega Genesis. I'm about to go get, I'm about to go get me some Sega games. Exactly. So I never hated my life. You know, I didn't come up like feeling all sad and depressed or none of that. You know, I didn't have mental health issues that arose from any of this. And it wasn't even all my parents, though. It wasn't just that, like, I would go to school and I would say that was more damaging, what was happening at school than what was happening at home.
Oh, wow.
Because at school, I'm constantly getting kicked out of class, constantly getting suspended, got expelled for something I didn't even do from all the Seattle public schools and forced into the alternative school system. Like, I would say that stuff was more damaging than a lot of what took place at home, because this, I'm internalizing it. I'm like, damn, I do see these others. Now I have something to compare myself to, which is these students who aren't getting kicked out of class all the time. These students who are just on their way to graduating and success, and you know, they can do the same exact behavior that I did, and it's all good, but I just did the same thing and I'm removed. So that was where the negative feelings came from, and that's why I avoided that environment. Like, I started skipping school in the 4th grade, you know, and from there on, there was maybe like 1 year where I was actually a committed student, you know, and maybe 1 year from the 4th grade to when I should have graduated, which I never did, you know. So once again, my childhood was normal to me. You know, everybody I was surrounded by was dealing with very similar. I'm gonna be honest, our issues were a little more extreme because we like dealt with the foster care system, and, you know, once again, going to 15 different schools, homeless shelters. Some of my people didn't have to go through that, right? Like, their mom might have had Section 8 and they were good. You know, they had a little bit of stability. They may have never been taken from their parents like me and my sisters were. But it was still, this was just the norm. I didn't have anything else to say, okay, my life should look different.
That's pretty heavy. You know, my brother and I talk all the time about issues as it relates to us growing up. And I kind of try to do, because he got a lot of resentments. He don't want to agree that they're resentments, but, you know, maybe his understanding is a little bit different. And now I got a little bit different perspective to offer to him based upon what you just gave us here. So thank you for that.
For sure.
I want to move into
it's a lot that we all have to heal from, you know. We hold on to that stuff. It doesn't make life any easier. We have to heal, and we have to also understand, like, what era our families came through, like what different generations, what they was given,
and what they didn't know.
Because what Omari said that really hit me like a ton of bricks was about the education and feeling like basically an outcast because of how they treated him. I felt the racism all the way through school. All the way through my beginning education, like Head Start through wherever I dropped the ball and got out of school, like 8th grade. I felt the racism in the Tri-Cities. It was bad.
And even though I didn't have a resentment I had to get past, like, the more educated I got, I would say the more I was able to make sense out of my upbringing, the more I understood what my parents were actually up against, the more I understood they can't just press a button and turn this thing off and things like that. Because You know, like just the educational path I took, the drug and alcohol counseling path, that taught me a lot about my own upbringing. Getting a degree in psychology, you know, taught me a lot about my own upbringing. So my educational path, it didn't get rid of resentment, but it made a lot of things make sense to me, you know.
Absolutely.
And once again, not just for my family, but for other people, you know, for people I might intend on serving and things of that nature.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I remember my grandmother used to always say, that's something that they can't take from me. And so one of the blessings for me was my mom taught us how to read, and she used to do the little flashcards and stuff. And all the kids in projects is running around playing and stuff. My mom has got us sitting on blankets doing flashcards with math and with reading, and we had to read stories and tell her who the main character was and all this. She was doing that stuff when we was little. So I liked reading. So I educated myself a lot. You know, even though I missed a lot of what a lot of people ended up going through was the lies in school. A lot of lies was told.
Well, that's another podcast, though. Yeah, that's a whole nother podcast. I mean, because we are attacking these systems. We are calling out these systems. That's what this is about, not the people, but the systems. Yeah. So yeah, thank you for that, Omari. Karen, you want to tap in on that?
I just add real quick, Omari, thank you for giving me some light, man, on that resentment piece, because I have the opposite experience where I'm still I'm 30, I'm going to be 36 in my 30s, still trying to get over having bitterness and hate in my heart towards, my childhood. And due to my family being on drugs and the drug epidemic getting a hold of them and impacting my childhood, I grew up in a lot of domestic violence, and that, trying not to get triggered, like that impacted me for about 14 years of my life, from being really young to all the way going into my teenage years, until the system had to take us away as well. And then by the grace of God, we actually had a church family that adopted me. And so there was a lot of mixed identity stuff that came with that. So I had a lot of resentment because I had to figure out my identity as an Indian woman in a white family, in a multicultural family, trying to figure out where I'm at, and then being mad at my mom for choosing drugs and not choosing me. And then being mad at her for choosing this lifestyle. And then she died in 2018, and I couldn't be mad at her no more. Right. And so then not being able to have that closure the way I wanted that closure, and the drugs being the impact on why she passed away. And so there's a lot of stuff with the healing piece that I've overcome. And I thank God's good grace for helping me heal and not being mad as I was. But I hear that piece, Omari. So thank you for sharing how that education has helped get over resentment. When I learned about the drug epidemic, when I learned how the system, what they did to, to pull our families apart, it helped my heart heal a little bit more to understand that this wasn't just choices, it's also impact.
Yeah.
I think you said something very impactful that, the people who are watching this need to also understand that because we're attacking the systems, don't mean we're angry. It doesn't mean that we haven't gotten beyond the space that we were, but we have to start deconstructing these and putting language matters, right? So we're using language to try to begin the deconstruction of these systems. But again, we running short on time. We want to get to this next part, which is really important. I know Karen has some strong feelings about this because, okay, now you're arrested, right? Now you're in prison. Now you're in this system already. And then, you know how it is, the gang ties and, the neighborhoods and the different sects and the neutrons, if you will, and all of that. But there's still a very, very unspoken, prevalent difference between the way white inmates are treated and the way Black inmates are treated. Even white gangs and Black gangs. So let's talk on that.
That part, Darryl, it's the part of like, as you reenter community, right? Like the impacts of when you know, when my white brothers or sisters are coming back into community and the opportunities they get compared to, you know, my black brothers and sisters when they're looking, you know, even me working in apprenticeships, education, getting people back into college, trying to help with childcare, trying to help with all these different things. And I see the tug in what's helping this, you know, this demographic better than this. And so, and at first I was like, okay, like, and I didn't notice it till it hit like a 5-year mark. And I'm like, okay, there's a pattern here of why this is happening. And I know people, we all know people in the community who've come out and who have worked in not taking the cred of being down. That's not it. It's understanding that there's still racism, because, you know, people can't tell that you've been down by just seeing you. They see your skin color first. And then
don't you think, let me ask you a question, not to cut you off, but
No, no.
don't you think a lot of times when they see black men, they think criminal?
I agree. And there's different parts of that depending on if you see criminal or if you see a
Threat?
you know, a case that's, you don't want to help as much. It's the individual of wanting to go out of the way to help someone who's black or to help someone who's white, right? Like, let's just get down to it. And that's what, in education and in every sector of when someone's coming out of prison, trying to get opportunities, trying to get, you know, that and a way to make a family, to just to get their life back on track. And there's a difference. That
Well, there's a difference. The things that you spoke about are happening inside as well.
come on.
Omari can tell you, you know, with them CI jobs, you know, how the white guys got those sold up. It's
Oh
very
yeah,
few
for,
black guys get those opportunities.
what is that called? In
Correctional industry.
industries. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
even when McNeil had the fire fighters, even on, like I said, it goes to the way they operate and segregate gangs,
Mhm.
the way they penalize you, the type of write-ups. The racism is so prevalent, and mostly because most of the officers are white.
Mm.
You know, and you know, sometimes I felt like you know, they looked at us as worse criminals than
Mm.
our white counterparts, if you will. I don't know if that was just me and my feelings about it. I don't know. You got any thoughts on that, Amari?
Yeah, I mean, you see these disparities throughout the system from every step of the way, you know, from policing, the over policing in neighborhoods, to the things you're going to get a traffic ticket and a warning for, the things that, you know, are actually going to be prosecuted, charges filed versus no charges filed, the plea bargains that are offered versus, you know, like just
Absolutely.
everything, to sentencing, to the amount of restitution and fines, to
Absolutely.
everything, every step of the way, you know, we see these disparities. And, you know, for me, I'm always like, why are we not looking at the people who produce these disparities? Why are we not looking at individual prosecutors, individual judges? And if we can see a clear difference in same exact circumstances, same situation, besides the color of somebody's skin, how are we continuing to allow them to get away with it? It goes back to that crack cocaine thing. This is by design. This is the
Absolutely.
plan. This is
Yeah.
exactly what they
Yeah.
intended the whole
Mhm.
entire time. You know,
Yeah, and they all need an overseer. They all need an overseer.
So are you
exactly.
guys telling me that the plantation still exists?
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. And it needs an overseer. The plantation need an overseer, the court system need an overseer, the
courthouse.
probation department need an overseer. All of them, the prosecuting attorney office need an overseer. They need people that oversee the decisions that these people make, because a lot of them do have racism in their heart.
And we live in the state of Washington, so we have to acknowledge that, look, the majority of people in prison in our state are going to be white, but that doesn't, and it can kind of throw people off. It could kind of make them think, okay, it's not about racism, things like that. But I mean, we're only 3% of the population here as far as
Absolutely.
Black folks. You know,
And out of every, I think the number is out of every 100,000 black folks, or every 100,000 black folks, it's like 4,700, or every 100,000 inmates, it's like 47,000 are black as opposed to 3,500 white to
man,
make up that disparity. And most of the people in there are for non-violent drug offenses,
for
you know?
sure.
So we still being held captive for those addictions and the war on drugs, as opposed to switching it over to an epidemic.
Yeah,
But
they're still releasing. Biden just released 6 people, and some of them had drug offenses that went to prison like when they was like 22 years old, and now they 66, and you just now pardoning them on this crap.
well, I just watched the episode last week. I think it was Dateline or something. They just released a guy who had got convicted of 60-something years for 3 pounds of marijuana. And now the state is getting rich off marijuana. They just released him. It took years to get him released, but it's just so impactful. I mean, we could talk forever about this. You guys have opened up a whole lot of plethora of information, especially Omari. You brought a whole lot of stuff to light, man. And man, I really appreciate your expertise. We probably all ought to send you a check for your psychology degree. But I'm real appreciative of you, man. And I will say that I just realized it's even more than after we did the event for the youth. You're the perfect guy for the space that you're in.
Say that.
You know what I'm saying? I really mean that, and I'm just proud of you, bro. I'm proud of what you're doing in these kids' life, man. Especially after knowing the trauma that you faced in your life. And Karen, I know you're gonna always be a soldier. I mean, we was part of Civil Survival. You traveled all the way to Bremerton to watch my interview for city council. And it's cool when you got people just there to support you. You can speak a little clearer and not be so nervous. So I'll never forget that. And Miss Brady, you just I don't even have no more words, no more adjectives to describe how dear of a friend you are. And so if y'all want to lead a your community with some parting words, what would you like to say to Miss Dolly Wall?
Not the cliche, fight what you believe in, but work for what you believe in, take action for what you believe in, be consistent for what you believe in, show up for yourself, right? The only way I ever got comfortable was I had to be uncomfortable, in these settings, in these situations, around people, making, not just making my table longer, but making my own table,
Good.
make my own table. So again, there are ways where you can not just be community, but you can make community, and you have to take that initiative.
I just want to say I appreciate the affirmation. Every time I hear feedback like that, it lets me know, look, okay, you're onto something here. You're on the right path. So I really appreciate that affirmation, and it goes both ways. We definitely everyone on this call lives our lives differently. We got different things that we participate in, but I feel like we're all part of a similar mission. Even though we might do different parts, play different roles, like you're creating jobs for people, as a business owner, individuals who might have had a struggle to find another opportunity. That's something that I definitely aspire to get to someday. So just like you say, you look up to me, I look up to you too, even though you got Chicago Bears stuff on instead of Seahawks and all that, like I rock with you, man. Cynthia, much love. Like she's been one of the most supportive people in my life since I met her. Karen as well. I really appreciate all you guys. But for me, the message that I have for anyone who might be watching is just use your voice, show up as your authentic self. And if being your authentic self creates conflict or creates issues, things like that, embrace it. Lean into that conflict. Let's learn something from it, because if I'm in a room and everybody who I'm talking to has the same perspective already, we all are in agreement, and I'm not bringing nothing to the table that challenges them or enhances their perspective, then I don't belong in that room. I feel like it's more like preaching to the choir. Nobody's growing. There's no advancement there. So just don't be scared to lean into conflict, to disagree. Me and Darryl, we don't disagree on a lot of things. That's what led to some collaboration, though. Like disagreement leading to collaboration. Like that's we need to embrace those possibilities. So that's what I'll leave them with.
And I would say that heal, like that people need to heal. And also that your story is your glory. Tell your story and then rewrite the story that you want to have. You use a pen to rewrite your story. Tell people about what you've been through, and so that they don't just automatically think they know you, because no one knows what shaped me but me.
Absolutely.
Say that.
Well, I want to thank you all, man. I appreciate it. I'm pretty sure we're going to be collaborating again. Again, I want to tell everybody about Omari's book, Transforming Society's Failures. It's on Amazon, just about anywhere you buy books. It's in the library. I suggest you pick up a copy of that book if you're interested in learning how to reach these younger people. And it's definitely an inspiring read. Karen, I know I'm gonna see you everywhere. You're always supporting businesses of color, people of color, and I thank you for that. And to everybody that's watching, we just ask you all to continue to support us, to like, subscribe, send questions at postprisonpodcast@gmail.com. And we'll see you next week. We got some scheduling issues going on, so we'll probably put out a promo in a day or two about next week's topic. So until then, everybody enjoy your day and peace. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Every morning I wake up, all I know is get it. The OGs always told me what I start, I gotta finish. So I push it to the limit, so I can be the greatest. So I can look my family in their eyes and say we made it. Don't let life hand you nothing, you just gotta go take it. Always keep it 100, don't ever let me catch you faking. Keep a close